and gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Today we are going to do a relentless rundown on the epic Monday night clash between the Titans and the Bills, two of the top teams in the AFC. We're going to go over each team, both offensively and defensively, and talk about what I thought about those performances and also overall how they did and their outlook moving forward. Then we're going to wrap it up at the end, talk about the key turning points in this game, where the game could have shifted, and how things changed the outcome. If you are new to the channel, if you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. It allows me to do what I love and bring you content that you love. My biggest question coming into this game was how would the top rushing defense in the NFL, allowing just 80 yards a game in Buffalo, do against the unstoppable Derrick Henry? The Bills had allowed just one touchdown on the ground total. King Henry had 3 of them last week. So that was going to be very, very intriguing as we get into it. So without further ado, let's get into this relentless rundown. So a couple things in this game that really stood out. First and foremost, both of these teams have a ton of talent. They can win in different ways, and they are dangerous and will continue to be. In this game on Monday night, there were 7 lead changes, which actually tied a Monday Night Football record. We'll start with the Bills, and offensively, they looked really good through the air. They were able to move it almost at will. Tennessee pressured Josh Allen here and there, but they also paid for that pressure at times, so it was a win-lose type of a situation for Tennessee. Josh Allen had 353 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, they did force him into 1 pick, which ended up being big, so credit to that Titans defense. Their biggest regret offensively for Buffalo is going to be not being able to get in the end zone in one of their first 2 possessions. They were within the red zone. They had the pressure on the road, and they couldn't get it done. They had to settle for 2 20-something yard field goals instead of at least getting in once, which really helped Tennessee to be able to settle into this one. The running game for Buffalo was almost non-existent. They didn't really attempt a whole lot of rushes. They didn't lean on it, and they didn't use it to set up the pass because they were so confident in their ability to just push the ball downfield, and that ended up almost working out for them. Now, defensively for Buffalo, they just didn't look like the dominant team that I thought they were. I read something very interesting that they actually kept some of their edge rushers out of this game, made them inactive, so that they could activate more D linemen. They wanted to be able to beef up front so they could put pressure on that offensive line and really stop the running game from getting going. But obviously, Henry had that huge 76-yard touchdown run, and that led to 6 straight scoring possessions for the Titans. And so when you give up all of those points consecutively, it puts a lot of pressure on your offense. And I just thought that the Bills would be able to get off of the field more consistently, especially late in this game as the pressure mounted. They had opportunities to get off on 3rd down, and not just 3rd and short, but they had some 3rd and long opportunities to make Tennessee punt it away, and they just couldn't capitalize on them. And I really thought, after how well they had played in the last couple weeks, that they would eventually be able to shut down this offense, get the ball back to Josh Allen, and come out with the win. With that decision to hold out extra defensive edge players, they didn't get a sack on Ryan Tannehill the entire game. He looked pretty comfortable in the pocket because of it. He was able to make completions on key situations, and ultimately they lost the battle to the ground game against the Titans as well. Even with their week 1 loss to the Steelers, they came in as one of the top ranked, if not the #1 team in the NFL on a lot of people's boards. So this was a golden opportunity for Buffalo to really seal their place in the elite and the top in the AFC, and they just couldn't get it done. I don't know if we can really blame any one person. I'm not sure even one facet of the Bills team should be blamed for this loss. Just collectively, they came up short. Even so, they had an opportunity at the end. Both Josh Allen runs were very close to being finished for touchdowns. And that's just an unfortunate end, and it's how the cookie crumbles in the NFL. It's a game of inches, and they come up a couple inches short here. The Bills are still clearly a top 5 team in the NFL. This loss, however, I think shows that their defense can be susceptible, and it looked pretty ironclad coming in. So that's an unfortunate event for them. After their bye week in week 7, they get Miami. So I think that this loss actually galvanizes this team. I really pity the Dolphins having to face Buffalo coming out of it. And then in their next 6 matchups, they're probably favored. So I think that they will be no worse than 9-3, certainly could be 10-2, going into that epic showdown in December against Tom Brady and the Bucs. They're still going to challenge for the top seed in the AFC. They have a very good chance at getting it, and I don't think that this game takes much away from that pursuit. As we move to the Titans, offensively, they were a force once they got it going. Now, it was a slow roll to get there. Their first 2 possessions, they did absolutely nothing. Then Ryan Tannehill throws a pick, and you're thinking they might be in trouble. So what do? They hand it to Derrick Henry. The guy breaks that 76-yard touchdown, and the avalanche would start. You can't really say enough about the guy. He answered my question coming in with authority. He was the one that was going to win that battle between the elite defense and King Henry, and he did it without any questions asked. He has 6 touchdowns in his last 2 games. He had a really light workload by his standards. He only carried the ball 20 times. He's still at 143 yards. So regardless of what his workload looked like, he's still eating just fine. I found out that when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, King Henry wins. He was able to keep the Titans' offense on schedule. They really worked the entire game plan through him, and that opened up the field for both A.J. Brown and Julio Jones as well. A.J. Brown, coming back from injury, looked really, really good. In addition, he had food poisoning on Saturday, and he still finished this game with 91 yards on 7 receptions. So that's truly impressive considering what he was going against, and you have to love it as a Titans fan. On the defensive side for Tennessee, they came in with a plan, and they stuck to it. Mike Vrabel did a great job preparing his guys. They were going to pressure Josh Allen. They were going to contain him and not allow him to get to the edge. And they did that fairly successfully for most of this game. It had mixed results because they were still beat by some big plays. Allen still was able to manipulate the pocket, but they were able to force turnovers, and they got the win. So that's what matters. They also had 3 sacks in this game, which was a big difference maker. And coming in, they actually had to start 2 rookie cornerbacks due to injuries. And both of those guys, while they got beat at some times, they looked okay and they did just enough. You have to love the fight and the resiliency that was shown by the Titans in this one. For Tennessee, this was an emotional game. You could see it on the players' faces, and you could almost feel it. It just had an aura about it. You could see that the crowd was into it, and they helped elevate the entire team. They came in looking like they felt disrespected for no one really giving them a chance here, and they played like that the whole game. The other big key, I think, for Tennessee was they are a completely different team with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones back there. They looked like a completely different offense than the team that lost to the Jets 2 weeks ago, and it's such a tall task to ask your corners to go one-on-one on the outside with those guys, because you know you're going to have to try to stack the box and probably fail to stop the run game from Derrick Henry. So it just puts so much more pressure on the defense when those guys are there. I'm very interested to see what they look like next week in a dogfight with Kansas City. Are they too high coming off of this emotional win? Are they going to let up a little bit? Or can they maintain this level of play and continue to be an all-around solid team? I think that regardless, the division that they're playing in is absolute hogwash. There is no one there that is going to threaten them, so they are going to easily run away with this division, and they have a legitimate chance to threaten to get a top 3 seed in the conference. Now let's move to the turning points in this game, where I think things shifted and how the outcome could have been different. If you guys have any questions, if you have any comments, if you disagree with me, drop that down below and let's get into those turning points. The first one we're going to cover comes early in the second quarter. Now the Bills had already built a 3-0 lead, and this was immediately following a poor pick by Ryan Tannehill. So Buffalo could extend this to 2 possessions and put a whole lot of pressure on that offense, and Tennessee is much less dangerous when they are behind bigger and have to throw the ball and cannot stick to their game plan. So the Bills start in Tennessee territory. They have the ball at the 48-yard line. They're able to complete a 3rd down and 5 to Stephon Diggs to keep the ball moving into the red zone. Now Dawson Knox is able to have a 7-yard touchdown run. It's a great play call by Brian Dable. However, there is a hold on Emmanuel Sanders on the outside. It takes those points off of the board. They then face a 3rd down and goal from the 10. And Diggs is actually open on the end zone on this slant, and Josh Allen barely misses him. So instead of being able to make it a 2-possession game, they have to settle for the field goal. They get it incomplete on a poor pass, they get a holding on a touchdown, and they end up settling for their second field goal of 23 yards, 24 yards. So that really hurt them instead of being able to extend it. That would be compounded by the fact that the very next possession for Tennessee, King Henry breaks off a 76-yard touchdown run. And now they're up 7-6, so they feel great even after playing pretty poorly through a quarter and a half. The next turning point that I want to look at is Josh Allen's interception as the second quarter started to tick away, just under 5 minutes to go. He's hit as he throws. We talked about the pressure a little bit from that Titans front. They were able to get to him here, and the ball kind of sails up into the air and is picked off. The Titans would get the ball at the 11-yard line, and we know in a short field like that, they're going to pound the rock. They gave it to Derrick Henry a couple times, and Ryan Tannehill is actually the one who sealed the drive with a 4-yard touchdown run. I think the entire defense thought that Henry was getting it. They didn't pay much attention to Tannehill, and he was able to take advantage. It gave the Titans a 17-13 lead with 4:23 until halftime. The play was so big because I think it really ignited the defense for Tennessee. It helped them to see that their game plan going in could be successful, that even though they were giving up some of those bigger plays, that this would be the reward sometimes for constantly sticking to it and toughing it out even with the mistakes. We move now to late in the third, where the Bills had just taken a 23-17 lead after a 52-yard field goal by Tyler Bass. We get to see the aggressive side of Mike Vrabel, which I don't think is there very often, and we get to see the analytical side that they chose to take on a 4th down. So it's 4th down and 2 from the Bills' 29-yard line. Remember, they're down by 6, so they could certainly settle for a longer field goal here, but instead they decide to go for it. I think that probably 90% of the people in the building and watching thought that this ball was going to Derrick Henry. Certainly the Bills defense did as well, because they stuffed the line. However, they choose a slant over the top to A.J. Brown, who looked great. He catches it for 14 yards. They are able to convert that critical play, and it would lead to a 3-yard touchdown run by Derrick Henry. So a huge momentum shifter. The Titans are able to wrestle back the lead 24-23 instead of settling for those 3 points, and I absolutely love the play call. As the game rolled on, the Titans just looked more and more comfortable in that offense. In their final drive of the game, it would be their 6th straight scoring possession. They were able to convert 3 huge 3rd downs and then cap it off with a 13-yard touchdown run by Derrick Henry to take a 34-31 lead with just under 3 to play. Now on the kickoff, Buffalo actually returns it 101 yards for the touchdown. However, big flag on the play. Initially when I watched it, I thought that there was no way that they could call the hold, but after seeing it in replay a couple times, it was a good call. It had to be called because it was clearly affecting what happened. And so the Bills would instead start from their own 18 with that 2:54 to play and a couple timeouts. As they did most of the game, they're able to air it out, move it down pretty easily on the Titans defense, and get in a position to take the win or to take the field goal to tie it and go into overtime. Now it's 3rd down and 6 from about the 9-yard line. Josh Allen scrambles, gives up his body to dive up and over 2 guys, and is stopped just short of the 1st down. So critical play call here, critical option to make a decision on. Do they want to kick the field goal, make it 34-34, go into overtime and take their chances, or do they go for the win and try to get out of Tennessee? Sean McDermott and Brian Dable ultimately decide that they want to go for it on 4th and inches, and they run a quarterback sneak. And as Josh Allen is going for the first down, he slips, ends up coming up just short. It definitely affected it. I'm not sure if he would have gotten it or not, but he certainly didn't get a very good opportunity as he lost his footing. Now, there's going to be a lot of debate about should they have went for it, should they have taken the gimme field goal to go into overtime. And for me, honestly, I love the call. You talk about trying to keep the ball in your best player's hands. You're on the road, so the chances of winning are smaller in those circumstances. You keep the ball with your best player. You allow him to try to get that win for you guys and get out of there. Now, could they have potentially tried something where they got him out into space, maybe had a run pass option, or just maybe was he able to run and beat someone to the pylon? That was certainly an option for them. But the way that Tennessee was playing, they were contained the entire game. So I don't know if that would have worked. And I love the aggressiveness that they showed, even though it didn't work out for them. This was one of my favorite games in all of week 6. I really hope you guys got to enjoy it as well. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for joining me. If you are new, if you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opax, and we'll see you next time.